Hello, everybody. So, today we're going to be talking about one of the most discussed topics in morals and ethics. This is a concept we call the trolley problem. Okay? And the trolley problem is basically just a concept that was brought up by a British philosopher named Philippa Foot in 1967. And what the trolley problem says is that you as a bystander, hypothetically speaking, you as a bystander are forced to click a switch, and there is a disaster that's going to be occurring. Um, the trains, the train is the train is fundamentally unstoppable, and there are five people on the track, and it's the trolley problem says that that you can flip the switch in order for the train to derail and go to another track instead to potentially kill one or five or one people. Okay, so which option would you opt for in this situation? But first, let's talk about the trolley problem in general. Okay, some general background about the trolley problem. The trolley problem, its sole purpose is just to make us think about our own actions and how our abstract sort of principles align with formal ethical frameworks. And what I mean by that is the trolley problem basically just makes us think whether the actions we're doing are justified based on the context. Okay? So apparently, okay, a lot of people who have seen the trolley problem or have heard what a trolley problem entails is that there's a massive statistic, and I think it goes around like 95%. 95% of people who hypothetically were asked to hypothetically give their answer to which they would which would they let pass away in these two tracks right here if they were the hypothetical bystander who was forced to pick between the two. Okay, and 95% agreed that the other person who was in the other track, the one person that is on the other track, should instead be the life used to sacrifice five other people. Okay, and a lot of people, and a majority of the people who have heard of this problem, agree with that, and that coincides with the sort of utilitarianist view of the trolley problem. Utilitarianism is basically just okay. You could consider you consider the you consider general population or a more substantial amount of people or the well-being of the collective society more than individual the individual person. Okay, and a lot of the utilitarianists agree that you should flip the switch in the trolley problem, and this trolley problem basically just puts us in a, a bind. Okay, it basically just puts us in a bind, and what I mean by that is it okay? Okay, so given okay given a situation, let me just denote. Okay, I'm gonna just say, given a hypothetical situation with zero good choices, good choices. And when I'm talking about good, okay, I'm talking about moral, moral goodness. Okay, let me just adjust this. Okay, with zero good choices, what would you do? Okay, what would you do? And this concept by Philippa Foot basically just makes us think about more than just set and fixed abstract principles that we go up uh, abide by, go and abide by every single day, and instead it makes us contextualize a situation first, okay, and basically just makes us frame situations first based on our context, on what the appropriate actions should be taken, um, on what the appropriate actions should be taken based on a justifiable premise, okay. And basically, okay, a lot of people majority agree with that five people should live. That's part of the ut- utilitarianism, in which it argues that the aggregate, okay, if you don't know what an aggregate is, it's basically just a group of people who have no personal relations to each other. Like, for example, the people in trains, okay? That's a very good example since this is also about trains. So, for example, the passengers inside a train that you're riding with, that is an aggregate because you have no personal relationship with the people. That's an aggregate. So, utilitarianism basically just argues that the aggregate well being matters more than than the individual. Okay, that's basically the trolley problem. Um, I could elaborate on what the importance is of this, but this is really just a brief sort of introduction on the trolley problem. To be perfectly honest with you, there are a lot of philosophers in today's age and in previous ages who are actually actively debating what the correct answer for the trolley problem should be. And they even created a mathematical equation in order to find what the correct answer and the most sort of ethical answer for this would be, because a trolley problem inherently is just an ethical dilemma. It forces you to choose between what's more ethical. Okay, forces you to choose which is more ethical in these two options, in these two choices that you're given, and it really requires a lot of critical thinking in order to really decipher um, what reasons you have to justify your own decisions if you were put into this hypothetical situation. So there are also a lot of variants of the trolley problem. I believe there is um, there is a switch by this is the switch bystander trolley problem. Okay, There was also the footbridge trolley problem. Okay, variants of this trolley problem. And basically, it has the same exact sort of ulterior premise that they're trying to push. Okay, there's also the loop case, and let me just elaborate on what the footbridge uh, dilemma variant entails. Basically, just if you were to push off a large man onto an overpass into the path of an oncoming trolley, would you do it? Would you do it in order to potentially stop the oncoming trolley, the uncontrollable oncoming trolley, to stop and use him as a sacrifice to potentially help risking other people's lives? There are a lot more variants of this dilemma, but this is just the introduction on what the trolley problem is. So I hope I was able to give sort of a good understanding, or somewhat of a good baseline uh, knowledge on what the trolley problem is. Okay. Also, credits to Ted Ed. You guys can check out his video. It is basically the source. The video that they did under trolley problem is basically the source I have for this information that I'm giving to you right now. So I suggest you could check out their channel and watch some of their videos. So thank you and subscribe.